that I think we all have to love about Margaret Thatcher. She was fearless, unflinching in the face of opposition.
She was. She is. She is.
And
she's fearless, and it's a great quality. It's a quality you really want in a leader, isn't it?
It is the quality that you want, someone who just doesn't really care what everyone thinks about him or her,
right.
Because, frankly, there's always going to be a number of people who don't like you.
Well, but she did care about getting her message across, and she realized, she was very canny, that in order to be elected and to be seen, she had to kind of transform herself, because when women raise their voices, they kind of get higher, and it gets like this, and it gets shrill, you try to make your point. You know, and especially in a big room. I'm very familiar with this phenomenon. But she realized that she could have more authority, and she could kind of cut through the argument if she lowered her voice and she spoke like this, and it sounded more authoritative. And that was something that she very designedly worked on.
She did that in order to have a more effective role in government, not because she was play acting, but she understood the need to play her role as effectively as possible.
Yes.
Well, we've got a lot more to talk about, so I want to keep you here for the rest of the day tomorrow and Monday. Meryl Streep stays with us. We will be right back.
Thank you.
We're back with Meryl Streep. You have played a number of roles where the person is still alive, or maybe it's a person who is a real person. For example, Karen Silkwood, who had passed away by the time you played the role. But one of my favorite movies, and I've got to talk about it, Music of the Heart.
Oh,
the remarkable movie about this teacher who teaches a violin program in Harlem. You know, music is close to my heart.
Yes.
Changed my life, and I'm such an advocate for music and art education. When you play the role of someone who is a real person and people know them, is that more difficult, or does it make it easier because there is a model to go from?
Well, it's a different job. I mean, in some ways it's easier because you do have sort of everything, all the backstories done. You don't have to invent that yourself. But on the other hand, for an actor, that's the fun part, is to make that up. And but in terms of playing Roberta Gaspari, who, you know, was teaching in Harlem yesterday until the bell rang, she is an amazing woman, and she started a program that's really grown exponentially, and I'm so glad that you raise your voice about music education in the schools, because they're cutting everything.
And it's wrong. It's the biggest sin we've done to our kids, is to take music and art from them, because it is the heart of education for so many right-brain dominant children. And I know that's not why we're here to talk, but you played that role so magnificently to the point that you actually learned to play the violin to be Roberta. Did you not?
I did. Well, I learned to play the Bach double concerto. That's the only thing I can play, and boy, nobody wants to hear it at my house.
We have a violin, and we're going to let you play. No, I'm not going to do that to you. That would be really mean if I brought one.
No, it's okay. I really can't play it very well at all anymore, because you do have to practice. You have to do it every day, and my life doesn't afford that kind of time, but I did love it. Oh, I do love music.
Mamma Mia, biggest grossing film of your career, which many people probably don't know.
Yeah.
But it also, now your daughters, were they a little reluctant and maybe not too sure about you doing that role?
No, they were thrilled.
Were they thrilled? Okay. But
yes, they were thrilled. You know, that movie really went round the world. I mean,
just a fun movie.
It's a fun movie, but its exuberance translates all around the world into any language. One of the great nights of my life was sitting next to the Empress of Japan as we watched it. I'm not kidding you. And everyone was, I mean, she is a god, I mean, related to the deity in some way in Japan. And so people will not look at her. You're not allowed to really look at her. And she came into the audience, and I realized that the empty seat next to me was going to be the Empress of Japan. And she's so beautiful. And she sat next to me, and it was very quiet. This is a movie about a girl who has slept with 3 different men, and she doesn't know, I mean, her mother slept with 3 different men, and she doesn't know which one is her father on the day that she's married. She doesn't know which one to walk down the aisle with. And I was thinking, like, oh my gosh, how is this going to go over? And the first strains of the first song came up, and she said, oh, I have this dilemma, you know, I don't know which one is the dad. And she leaned over to me and she said, very naughty.
That is going to be a memory for sure. You've also talked about how difficult it is as an actress that as one ages, sometimes the roles just disappear, but they haven't for you. And yet there is a challenge, isn't there, to find roles that are suitable and ones that people will respect you for and not just say, okay, well, we'll put her in some type of role that, you know, is no longer going to be valid for someone who's over the age of 40.
Yeah, I think that's true. But, you know, I think if the card you played in the early years was mostly your sexuality or being cute in a way that doesn't transform into the rest of life, then you run a risk of that. It's hard to be cute and really sexy. I mean, I don't think it really is hard to be sexy, but it's just the business perceives you differently. And so that never was my thing early on. And even though I wanted those parts, I just didn't get them. And so, you know.
How have you been able to have maybe one of the most normal lives of anybody within the screen industry? You know, married 30 years, the same gentleman. You have 4 wonderful children. You live a normal life. You're not on, you know, the scandal sheets all the time. What is the key to that maybe you would pass on to younger actors and artists and say, look, here's the way to make this thing last for a lifetime?
Well, I just think a lot of it is serendipity. And also, probably, for me, I got a lesson early in life about lining up the priorities. You know, I had a boyfriend that I lived with for 2 years that I was wildly in love with, who died of cancer when he was only 40. And so I had it all lined up for me pretty clearly. You know, get your life right, and then everything else will be okay.
Well, everything has been very okay for Meryl Streep. And thank you for sharing your wonderful artistry with us in so many roles. But most recently, this powerful portrayal of a true historic icon, Margaret Thatcher. And I hope everybody sees Iron Lady.
Thank you.
You were and are Iron Lady. Thank you so much.
Really nice of you.
Coming up, an inside look at the president's re-election campaign that could serve as a wake-up call for the GOP. We'll be right back.